A half-naked man pierced by arrows, painted thousands of times by history's greatest artists, but the Church never saw what everyone else did. For 17 centuries, Saint Sebastian stood at the crossroads of faith and desire, devotion and transgression. And the story of how he got there is stranger, darker, and more human than anything the Vatican ever preached. Welcome back. Today we're pulling back the curtain on one of art history's most extraordinary hidden stories: how a Roman soldier martyred in 288 AD became the patron saint of queer identity, the subject of erotic obsession, and the secret symbol of a community that couldn't speak its own name. This is the story of Saint Sebastian. Rome. The 3rd century. The empire is cracking at its foundations. Emperors rise and fall like tides. And running through the heart of this crumbling machine is a young soldier named Sebastian, handsome, disciplined, a rising officer in the Praetorian Guard, the elite corps that protected the emperor himself. By every external measure, Sebastian was the ideal Roman man. He had access to power, proximity to greatness, and a body trained for war. But Sebastian was living a double life. He had secretly converted to Christianity, at a time when that choice could mean only one thing: death. He used his position to minister to imprisoned Christians, smuggling comfort into the cells of the condemned. He was, in every sense, a man hiding in plain sight inside the most powerful military institution in the Western world. When Emperor Diocletian discovered the betrayal, the sentence was immediate and theatrical. Sebastian was tied to a post, some accounts say a tree, some say a column, stripped nearly bare, and used as target practice by his fellow soldiers. Arrow after arrow. The accounts are graphic, unflinching. They described his body as looking like a hedgehog, bristling with shafts. And then, remarkably, he survived. A widow named Irene of Rome found him still breathing and nursed him back to health. Sebastian, undeterred, went directly back to Diocletian and confronted him publicly. This time, the emperor made sure the job was finished. Sebastian was beaten to death with clubs and his body thrown into the Cloaca Maxima, Rome's great sewer. He died as he lived. Defiant, hidden, and breathtaking. For over 1,000 years, Sebastian was depicted in Christian art the way most martyrs were: robed, formal, dignified. A saint among saints. Then something shifted. The Renaissance arrived, and with it, an explosion of artistic ambition, classical obsession, and quietly, dangerously, a rediscovery of the male body as an object of beauty. Artists like Botticelli, Mantegna, Perugino, and later Guido Reni began painting Sebastian in ways that had very little to do with suffering and everything to do with desire. The arrows remained. But suddenly, Sebastian's body was luminous. His face was serene, almost ecstatic, not the face of a man in agony, but of a man in a state of transport. His muscles were sculpted. His pose was languid. His expression invited something the Church could never officially acknowledge. Here was the loophole. The only acceptable way for a Renaissance artist or viewer to contemplate the unclothed male form in a religious context was through martyrdom. Sebastian's torment became a mask. A cover. A permission slip. Scholars have long noted that many of the artists who painted Sebastian most obsessively were almost certainly queer themselves. Guido Reni's Saint Sebastian, painted in the 1600s, so openly drips with longing that the historian Simon Schama called it the first pin-up. Oscar Wilde reportedly kept a copy above his writing desk. When Wilde was imprisoned for gross indecency in 1895, he took the name Sebastian Melmoth upon his release, a direct, aching tribute. The Church saw a martyr. Everyone else saw something else entirely. By the late 19th and early 20th century, Sebastian had migrated far beyond church walls. He appeared in decadent poetry, in coded correspondence between men who loved men and dared not say so, in private collections and whispered conversations. He was the language of longing before that longing had a public language. Then came the 20th century, and the icon fully transformed. Derek Jarman, the British filmmaker and openly gay artist, made a film called Sebastiani in 1976, the first major film with dialogue entirely in Latin, and the first mainstream film to portray Saint Sebastian explicitly through a queer lens. It was radical. It was reverent. And it proved that this transformation wasn't modern revisionism. It was simply making visible what had always been there. The AIDS crisis deepened Sebastian's meaning in ways almost too painful to articulate. A beautiful body, pierced in suffering, defiant even in death, for a community watching its members fall one by one, Sebastian became something raw and real. An image of anguish that the world had somehow always accepted in the form of art, even as it rejected the people feeling that anguish in real time. Japanese novelist Yukio Mishima, himself deeply conflicted about his own sexuality, wrote an entire autobiography of his inner life organized around a single painting of Saint Sebastian. He described the first time he saw Guido Reni's image as the moment he understood something essential about himself. The saint didn't just represent desire. He represented the terror and beauty of being seen. And that, perhaps, is the truest answer to this mystery. Sebastian endures not because of theology, not because of art history alone, but because his story is the story of every person who ever had to hide who they were inside an institution that would destroy them if it knew. He was in the Praetorian Guard. He was one of them. And he was never one of them at all. So here is the question I leave you with tonight: when a symbol lasts 17 centuries, surviving empires and plagues and revolutions, who does it really belong to? The institution that created it, or the people who needed it most? If you want more stories where history hides in plain sight, subscribe and don't look away. We're just getting started.